New York City's, Brooklyn fans everywhere. This is Brooklyn Nets Weekly. On this week's pod, we're going to talk a little bit about Andre Drummond. We're going to talk a little bit about Lemarcus Aldridge. And we're going to talk about where that puts Nick Claxton and some other stuff as well. What are we doing with this last roster spot? Brooklyn, let's talk basketball. Bam.
What's up?
Welcome to another week of Brooklyn Nets Weekly. I woke up this morning to all of these tweets about how this is what KD needs. Like, he needs to go and get all these incredible talents. Like, are they kidding me? Bam, like,
I love it.
It's hate.
I love that the Nets are hated. I'd rather be hated than have a bunch of bandwagon fans. I'm thoroughly enjoying this. The entire notion of it is nonsense. And look, as an NBA fan, you're never happy when there's a super team.
Right.
But when it's your team, you're gonna like it. So bring them on, pick everybody up, get them all.
I find it so interesting from where the hate is coming from the most, though. Like the nerve of the Knicks, who wanted Zion, KD, and Kyrie just to start. They wanted to do that in the summer. And now they're talking about, like, I have Knicks fans coming to me and saying things like, our homegrown squad of gritty players. Are you?
I had this conversation last night with a Knicks fan. And I was like, look, the regular season was more fun in that, D'Angelo, because you didn't know night to night what was going to happen.
Right.
But guess what? The fun stopped starting in the playoffs. It was over. They got trounced. It was frustrating. And then the reality hit. They weren't good enough. So, yeah, I'm still having fun now. There's no, panic or urgency. But once the playoffs start, we're going to get hopefully 3 months here of, as intense as it gets. And that's what the Nets are building for. So people can hate on KD all they want. I don't root for KD. I root for the Nets. And that's why I want to win the championship. I don't care if KD wins it on his own or none of that shit. I just want a title. So let's get everybody we can that makes that more possible.
Yeah, I hate it when people try to knock you because you say we or our. I feel like I am Brooklyn. I mean, and I feel like the Nets fans are more Nets than the players
We are the Nets. The fans are the team because the players come and go. We stick with the roster,
right?
And the franchise. So when I was a kid, I used to be like, "Oh, it's stupid because you're not playing." Fuck that. We are the Nets. There is no Nets without us. The players wouldn't be getting paid if it wasn't for us. So yes, we are the team.
Absolutely. So let's break down this Lemarcus Aldridge thing. Like, this numbers wise, it's not even worth bringing up the numbers. They're the worst numbers of his history in his career, and we know he wouldn't be bought out if he was still good, right? Like with Drummond, it's a little different because it's about money and getting money off of your books. In a year you're not competing at all, but the challenge for me is that he may not be very good. The question is he good enough to have an effect on the team, and then is he better than what we got?
It doesn't really matter. What he provides us with is options. And I think it seems destined that we're on a collision course with Philly, that matchup is going to happen at some point.
Correct.
We're not going to be able to stop Embiid. There's nobody out there that you can sign. There's no Embiid stopper in the NBA. It doesn't exist. So what do? You try to hurt him on the other end. Why would you throw out Jordan against him? That's not going to make him work on the other end.
That's right.
So I think what they're thinking is, like, Milwaukee plays Lopez, who's a guy that stays out on the perimeter. We're going to use him in kind of that role where he's going to be a floor stretching five. And then we can use our fours to dive to the rim. And what I love about this pickup and Griffin is we now have, and then obviously the emergence of Claxton, we have options to play Durant at the 3. He doesn't have to be a 4 anymore.
Right.
We could put Joe on the bench. We can take him out as the first sub, put another big in. So all it is about creating options and flexibilities for potential matchups down the line.
These are conversations that we've had on Twitter for a while. Like,
right.
We've been talking about how, everyone who I thought it was silly to think that Durant was going to really play the 4 full time on this team. And it's because when you play him at the 4, yes, he's going to have a mismatch on most 4s and most centers. Of course, that comes without saying. But the problem is you now rely on him to do things you never want Kevin Durant doing. You don't want Kevin Durant banging in the post. You don't want Kevin Durant allowing even Tobias Harris to bury his chest, his elbow into Durant's chest and dive into the basket. All of these things are what you want Kevin Durant to not do. You want Kevin Durant to be 7 feet, shoot from deep, and basically rip out the hearts of teams just not having any way to stop Kevin Durant.
Right, and that's not to say that he'll never play the 4 in any type of lineup.
He'll play the 5 in some lineups.
Right, you just want to have the option to stick Aldridge, Claxton, Durant.
Correct.
Griffin, Green, Durant. You want to have the options to do it, to go bigger, to go small, and now you can play any style of play, and it's not going to affect you on offense. So this is a good move. I mean, clearly Griffin has something left to offer. Our most physical player, and I think probably will be our best defensive matchup for a guy like Embiid.
So let's talk about Griffin. Like before we go past that, let's just talk about the week that was Blake Griffin on the Nets. I think he looked incredible. I think that
he definitely has something left. I think he can certainly, especially as a center with his passing ability. He had that great pass to Joe in the Detroit game that led to a 3. He had quite a few others. The shots didn't get knocked down.
He caught an alley-oop.
Yeah, look, this idea that he couldn't dunk anymore. The guy's he'll be able to dunk till he's 50.
Right.
Look, is he going to throw it down like he used to? No, but who gives? We don't need Blake Griffin from 2010. It's not what they need. So he gives them an option, too, that they don't have, to dump the ball to somebody in the post. It's just, another option, another look, another thing that teams have to prepare for. And he's clearly our most physical player in terms of the way he can throw his weight around. So it's just another added dimension. Yeah, he's the only guy on the team that has any muscles is him.
And he mucks the game up. Like when a game gets ugly, and sometimes in the playoffs, teams go out there and say, you know what? We can't really do nothing against them, but we're just gonna make this game physical and ugly. Like the Heat do that. The Heat muck up the game with Jimmy Butler and some of the nonsense that he pulls. And another example of it is Kyle Lowry. Blake Griffin to me is like a giant Kyle Lowry, just falling all over the place, initiating contact, responding to contact. You need that on your team to win it all, and we didn't have it organically. But we have it now, and I'll take it.
Yeah, and speaking of Lowry, we won the trade deadline by him not ending up in Philly or Los Angeles.
Right. Not that it would have made any difference. I don't think.
I
think they would be better. I would because Philly was the one I was worried about. I was worried about Clippers too. I think he would make them both better.
Or the Lakers. There was rumors of too that they were trying to get him, and I was like, what the hell could they possibly offer? But
still, he stayed, and I get that. If you're gonna be bad, why be bad if you're not and not get anything for him? Might as well just keep him.
Yeah, especially a franchise player like that. I mean, that guy means a lot to that franchise. And first off, they can certainly still find their way into the playoffs if they get into that playing game. They're experienced, they're tough, they're well coached. They can certainly find their way into a 7 or an 8 seed. So I wouldn't count them out just yet either.
And it's kind of foul to do that to Siakam. Like Siakam, like that team is going through a rough season where they're not even playing in their building. They're not even playing for their fans. Like to do that to them on top of it, I think Masai Ujiri did the right thing and held on to him, and just let it play out. If he can't play anymore, just let that let us get to the end of his career with him.
Right.
We did a similar thing. We didn't trade Spencer Dinwiddie.
Well, you saw what he said today, right?
Oh, what did he say? I did not.
So Net Staley tweeted that the Nets think there's a possibility, or something to the effect of the Nets and Spencer think he can potentially come back. And Spencer quote tweeted it and just wrote, "I do." So let me say, I said this to my old man. If he comes back at 75% of Spencer Dinwiddie, it's a wrap. I mean, we're going to talk about the extra roster spot that they still have left.
Yep.
They need another guard. Like these nights when they want to give James a blow, like you don't have to worry about, like he played the entire second half in the Detroit game. Like you'd have a reliable guy to go in the game that can create. Tyler Johnson's just not it. In that regard.
He you know what? Tyler Johnson doesn't do those things, but I prefer Tyler Johnson to TLC so much.
It's not even close. He's fine. He's a good off-the-ball player. He sticks open shots. He takes good shots, and he busts his ass on defense. Couldn't be happier with him. But he's just not a facilitator and a playmaker. That's just not what he does. He has no quickness.
You don't necessarily want Tyler Johnson playing. Like Tyler Johnson is what gets you to a playoffs, and but you don't want that guy playing in the playoffs, right?
No, but look, if he gives you a couple spot minutes if someone's in foul trouble, I trust that he'll go out there. He's not going to put his head down and dribble the ball off his feet like TLC. Yep. He'll take his open shots and he'll make them.
Yep. No, there's no doubt about it. So you're happy with Spencer being here?
I'm not. Look, we don't know. I told you had to temper your expectations,
right?
In terms of the trade. So I don't know what was offered, if anything. So why not? And you know what? You never know. Maybe they pull out their checkbook and they say, let's lock this guy up for 4 years at 18, 19 a year, and we'll see how it works out. We could always trade him, or maybe he's still here beyond those guys. I mean, we'll see. I'm not counting the Nets out to just let him walk either.
Yeah, I mean, and that might be an agreement that they made between each other. Like, don't trade me to these places.
Yeah, let's see what's out there for you in free agency and see what you can get. And if it's more than we're willing to pay, best of luck. But maybe we can work something out, or we can work out a sign and trade. That's
the reason why players want to come here to us. They trust Sean Marks. They trust Sean Marks as a person. They trust Sean Marks as a leader to keep the winning train going, right? Like if I'm Spencer Dinwiddie, I know this is probably my big payday, but I kind of feel like that there's a part of Sean Marks that just wants to be able to have a core group of guys that he could go with that's gonna be there when we re-up. Like do you believe in that? Okay, so I'll phrase it properly to make it where you don't have to, grope around in the dark of what I mean. Do you believe that if the Nets win a championship, that we are now a destination team?
The Nets are now, and until something happens where they prove otherwise, will be a team that any major player will consider if they have the money to get them. They'll always be, because does that mean we'll always win? No. Somebody's going to eventually want the Knicks, and somebody will want Boston and the Lakers and so on and so forth. Somebody will want to go to the Heat, but we'll always have a shot to get there. And if the stars align for us again, nobody's going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to the Nets.
Yep.
We've earned that clout. And I think, we're certainly going to have a run here over the next 2 to 3 years where, any veteran free agent is going to say, hey, my career's coming down. Maybe I can go link up with these guys in Brooklyn.
Yeah, no, I think there's like